This is the review given to us in Pre-AP Algebra 2, and I will be helping teach problem number 20, in which we have to graph a logarithmic function, which we need to underline that. There are two major points for that, and that will be 1, 0 and 10, 1. So in this graph, in a logarithmic graph, we're used to seeing something kind of like, kind of like this, where it comes in and curves straight down, right? And there's an asymptote on 0. Okay? Well, in this equation, we have x plus 2, and then the minus 1 outside the parentheses. We also have this negative out here. Now, since the negative is not within the parentheses and in front of x, this means we will be flipping over the x-axis, not the y-axis. Now, over here, we have x plus 2, which means since this is within the parentheses, we will be going on the x-axis, except instead of doing what this says and going over this way, since it's within the parentheses, we do the opposite and move to the left 2 this way. And that's where that's where everything's going to shift. The negative 1 tells us, since it's not within the parentheses, that we will be moving that direction on the y-axis. So we will be moving down 1 down here. Alright? So now let's put that into a table. We have x and y. Let's bring that on down. And then we have 1, 0 and 10, 1. Alright, so that is our important points on this function, on the parent function at least. So now over here, since we have the negative x, we will be doing negative x. And since I like to make it to where I can read it easily, I will put a minus 2, so that way I don't forget and put a plus 2 and accidentally shift everything over to the right. And then over here, we're going to put a minus 1, because it goes down 1 on the y-axis. Alright, so we now have negative 1 and 0. And over here, the negative x, so we're going to multiply that by a negative. That's now negative 1 minus 2, which makes it negative 3. Same thing with the 10. We are going to multiply it by a negative and then subtract it by 2. Negative times 10 equals negative 10 minus 2 equals negative 12. So now let's graph that. We have an asymptote on 0. Let's remember that real quick. There's an asymptote on 0, and it will shift with the x-axis. So let's write that down real quick. Alright, now let's graph this real quick. We have negative 3, negative 1, so let's come over 3 and down 1. And then we have negative 12, 0. Alright, well, when the y-axis equals 0, we can't really go back to negative 12. So we're going to have to extend this a little bit. So let's use our imagination, come over 1, 2. So our point will be over here. And then let's draw the line in. Alright? So now since the x-axis shifted over 2, 1, 2, so has the asymptote that was on 0. So now the asymptote equals negative 2. So draw that in. Now the last thing you do is draw the arrow. And it's kind of tricky down here because it just gets closer and closer to negative 2, but it never touches it. So what you're going to do is you're going to draw your line coming down and it comes almost straight down from there. Alright, but it never touches -2. Alright, and that would be how you graph the equation on problem number 20. Oh, and it seems I didn't move the camera down far enough, so I wrote down here asymptote equals -2. So that's it.